Today, it's your birthday. Yesterday was too, and so is tomorrow. Not sure what that means? Let us introduce you to this powerful concept and our community. We are so thrilled you've joined. We are Helene and Christina, and our mission is to empower, teach, and remind women to celebrate themselves. Combined, we have over 35 years' experience as therapists in private practice, and it was in the office as well in our personal lives where we were hearing women week after week talking about their messy middle life stage where they were not feeling seen or alive. If you are curious about how Helene and I define this, please go back to season 1, episode 2.
We come to you not as your therapist, but rather two women in this life stage with you. We like to think of ourselves as your friends. Our podcast promises to talk about the hard or the uncomfortable topics in a way to empower you, laugh along the way, because that's certainly part of the hearing, and we want you to find joy in life. We strive to find the meaning in the middle of the messy or the unknowing. What sets us apart, you might ask? We leave you with gifts with each and every episode. These may come in the form of actual tools or strategies, invitations to stay exactly where you are, and once in a while, some mic drop thought-provoking ideas. Now that we're friends, let's make this official. We would absolutely love to help start your Thursday mornings, so please start following the show wherever you're listening to us right now. Oh, and sign up for our free newsletter. It's on our website, yourbirthdaypodcast.com. Ready for some gifts to start living your life exactly how you want? Take the free quiz on our website, and Christina and I are going to drop gifts immediately into your inbox. I love saying that part because I love giving gifts. So Go ahead, do it right now. We got you.
This episode is all about money, money, money. It's a topic that for some people might feel like an oomph or even an oh shit or fuck. I would even say that. But we really want it to be a hell yeah for you. Helene and I hear the struggles individuals, couples, families are talking about this very important topic in our office, outside, in our personal lives. And we know it's a topic that we need to bring to the It's Your Birthday community. We are inviting our expert, Lindsey, to help us through this discussion. And we're going to leave you gifts along the way. So don't hang up. Don't freak out. Take a deep breath. You need this episode. We all need this episode. I have now listened to almost all of Lindsey's podcasts. I have had her come and speak at therapy suites. And friends, I have to tell you, I'm like pretty obsessed. So if after hearing this episode, you know of others who may benefit from this topic, I hope you're going to share it when it ends or in the middle and then continue listening. So as always, grab your beverage of choice. I'm hanging out with coffee this morning. Get comfy and get ready to get the support you need to talk about money and have real conversations in understanding your relationship around it.
Hi, Lindsey. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, sharing your time and your knowledge. Before we dive in, share with our audience a little bit about yourself, who you are, and how did you become interested in and then become an expert in helping others with their money relationship challenges? Woo, that was a mouthful.
So many things. Yes, I am Lindsey. Thank you so much for having me, you guys. I'm so excited to be here. A little bit about my story. Really, I'm like, where do I start? When I was in the womb. No, just kidding. I really grew up with a family that had a lot of contention with their money. My parents fought about it all the time. And ultimately, when they filed for divorce, that was the reason, was because they could never get on the same page with money. And I remember internalizing that as like, money's gross, money's bad. I don't want to deal with it. Right. And then I actually ended up moving in with my very best friend. Her parents kind of took me in when I was 16, and they were quite well off and their marriage was intact. And I remember it felt very different in their home. It was just like, I wasn't walking on eggshells. If I spilled something, it wasn't going to be like World War III breaking out. Her mom was like, we'll get it cleaned or we'll get a new rug if we need to. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And it felt different. And I kind of took that with me into young adulthood where I met my now husband when I was 24. And he and I really started talking about money early on because I said, that's not going to be the thing that destroys our marriage like it was in my house growing up.
Mhm.
And so we did a lot of work around it. So fast forward, I become a therapist, and I knew I was actually at a personal development event in October of 2022. I was super pregnant at this event in Arizona. And I remember having this moment of thinking, like, I want to be working with people on their money. Like, there's such a through line in the couples that I've worked with and the individuals that I've worked with that, like, if they had money, it would actually solve a lot of their problems, or at the very least make their problems less severe because they could pay for the help that they needed. They could pay for the tools, the supplies, or whatever the case may be. And because I had already been on my own financial self-care journey for so many years, I could see like this, it works for me and I want it to work for other people. But at that time, I thought, I'm a therapist. Who's going to listen to me? I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a tax professional. Like, nobody's going to listen to a therapist. So, I kind of shoved that back in the back of my brain and went on my merry way, had my baby. And about 6 months later, I was driving on my street and I was listening to an audiobook, totally unrelated to money, totally unrelated to any of this kind of stuff. But the woman, the narrator, said the words financial therapist. And I paused it. I pulled in my driveway and I went like flying through the door. My husband was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I need to Google something right now." And I did. I looked up financial therapist, and it turns out because I'm a master's level social worker, I qualify for the certification. And we have a 48-hour rule in our house. So we waited the 48 hours to purchase the program, but I did. And I did nothing but that certification process for weeks and weeks and weeks. Like, I mean, waking up at like 4:30 a.m., doing like the nap time warrior stuff into the evening. And so that was almost 2 years ago. And the rest is kind of history. And now I get to be a financial therapist and help other people, women and couples on their journey to financial self-care. And it is very fun. I love it.
Yeah. Ugh. And I will never forget Lindsay posting in one of our social media groups for clinicians. And when I saw what she did, I was like, holy Toledo, does the world need her? Like, the world needs her. And
Absolutely.
so I love this. And it's interesting. Yesterday, I was reading an article on LinkedIn about money, and it said the most secretive life people live is centered around money.
Mhm.
And I was like, wow. And so I think that just leads us perfectly into my first question for you, which is, Lindsay, what do you hear often as the barriers people have that are keeping them from a healthy relationship with money? And are they able to talk about money in terms of a quote unquote relationship?
Yeah. So that's exactly where I was going to take this, right? Is for the listener out there, if you have not thought about the fact that you are in a relationship with money, that is really where I want you to start reframing to, right? Because just like all relationships that you are in, whether it's intimate partner relationships, mother, daughter, sister, brother, whatever it is, those relationships are going to fall on this spectrum of toxic and healthy, right? And it's going to be somewhere in between there. And there is really when you start realizing that you're in a relationship with money, and if it's a toxic relationship, often what I'm seeing is most of the time, a lot of times, it is avoidance, particularly with women. It seems like we are it's called the ostrich effect, like literally sticking your head in the sand, not looking at the numbers, not having really any idea how much we're making or where our money is going. A lot of times it's described as like water, like money is water in your hands and it's just like falling out, but you don't really know where it's going. You don't really even see it. You just can't hold on to it. And so that is telling me like there might be a toxic relationship that we need to repair, right? There's also the other side of things where we're so obsessive about money. And like, I don't know if you have a friend, I definitely have friends like this where like, how was your vacation? And they're like, oh, it was good. We got the flights for like $80. And then we went to dinner and it was like $200. I don't know. It was kind of expensive for what we got, but like it was pretty good. And I'm like, I don't actually care about how much things cost. I'm just wondering if you enjoyed your vacation, you know? So there's kind of like two ends there. And then on the other side, you can actually transform that relationship into a healthy relationship with money, right? And that can be being in control of your money, having an open relationship, telling your money where it's going to go. And just really simply having a willingness to learn about this stuff is a really good place to start.
What would you say, and I'm gonna kind of play off that for a second, but, like, some people, it honestly brings them joy to get good deals, and, like, that's part of their excitement of a vacation or part of their excitement of, like, a project. Like, I can think of I had to haphazardly remodel my bathroom because we got a leak, and my excitement was creating what I think is a pretty gorgeous bathroom for, like, stupid cheap, and I was so proud of that. Like, it was a source of pride for me to be like, "Look, this bathroom looks like it's like a $60,000 bathroom, and I spent like $10,000 on the supplies."
That's pretty amazing. It is.
Yeah.
It's a really good question. There are, that's kind of part of like that obsessive, like, oh, I really want to like get the deal, right? And there's kind of a time and a place for that. What's hard about that one is when we're like in our early 20s, say, right? A lot of times we should be looking for the good deal because we are not making a really great salary. We don't have the income. But what I would say is actually it's okay to spend money. And I think spending money is actually a skill that we need to develop. We just need to do so in a really intentional way and do so that's going to move the needle. Because eventually, what I don't think a lot of people are thinking about, right, is what is their enough number? What is the enough number for what they need to be earning? What is their enough number for what they need in retirement? And when we can start actually attaching that, we can actually start practicing buying things at full price. And like, how does that feel in our bodies? But it really needs to be an intentional practice. Sometimes it's totally fine. Like you saved $50,000 on your bathroom. I'm not going to be like, that's a terrible thing that you did, right? Like that's wonderful. But sometimes like when it comes to, especially I see this with women and particularly moms who haven't spent a dime on themselves since baby was really kicking around in her tummy, right?
Mhm.
Like I remember, well, I'll just say many, many women that I know have not bought themselves new bras, new underwear, like things that are like, right? Yeah,
New underwear.
Kristen's raising her hand. She's like, this is
My underwear are before Svea. Not
okay.
gonna lie, friends, there's true confession.
I'm going to give you permission right now to please go buy yourself new underwear. It's like the
No,
people that
they
walk around with
stretched out
holes in their
perfect.
socks. You're like, no, I want my underwear this way. If you're happy in them, you're happy in them.
I'm happy in them.
But I will say, if for the people that are not, we make these justifications for why we are allowed to spend money in certain areas and why other areas are not allowed to be spent on, right? And I think we need to examine that a little bit deeper and say, like, why are we not buying ourselves the nicer thing? And yet we're willing to spend so much money on our kids or so much money on our friends or whatever it is. And so, yeah, to your point, like it's okay to chase the deals if you need the deals, right? Because then there's that area too where it's like, well, I got this good deal on a thing. And you're like, well, I didn't really need it in the first place. And then that is kind of a waste of money. So there's kind of a lot of different areas we could take that. If you want to unpack it more, I'm happy to. But yes, that's what I'll say on that.
I love it.
Okay, I have a question, but before that, I'm gonna do it, Christina. And I've like been taking on this skill of hers. Is I'm gonna derail us again for a second, and then I'm gonna get to the question. You said something that people need to start having the willingness to talk about money. I think that could be a really great gift to our audience. In just like a quick sentence or two, which I know probably is not fair for probably something that's a really big question. What does willingness look like?
Really just a willingness to learn, right? And so that even just means being here, listening to this conversation instead of, to Christina's earlier point, like just turning it off and being like, I'm out. Money talk is not for me. I'm gone, right? And so I think just having that willingness to say like, okay, I'm accepting the fact that I've been afraid of money for a long time. I haven't known what to do. And an openness to receive some information and some education can be a huge, 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 very powerful thing.
And I love how you said that. It doesn't have to be like, open the door wide open, bring it all in. It can be just like opening up like your blinds a little bit. I just have to be willing and open to receiving some information, like listening to this podcast and then hanging out with yours. Okay, great. Thank you. So then I'll go to my question. You talk about like, quote, money isn't just a math problem. There is always so much more to the equation. Can you share with us some of those things or variables that are in that equation?
Yeah, absolutely. So, because I'm a financial therapist, the therapist in me leans into that psychosocial aspects of money, which for a very long time by, old white dudes has been ignored. It's been very like, here's the numbers, this is what it tells you. And that's fine for some people, but I think that's actually not worked for so many people, again, particularly women, right? And so we actually need to lean into the emotions and understand how our emotions are playing a role in our spending habits.
Mhm.
And I'll give you an example of this, right? Is there's kind of two ways I think about it actually. One is, you've had a long day, maybe you've taken on a lot of clients or you have had a busy day with the kids, whatever the case may be. We are busy people, right? And everyone is to bed and you're like, I'm just going to curl up on the couch and you know where your thumbs kind of drift to on your phone. And all of a sudden, with 3 clicks of a button, you have a package that's now going to be magically delivered to your door in 48 hours. And truly, the society that we're living in, the instant gratification culture, all of this is actually magic. Like, think about telling somebody what's happening now 200 years ago, like crazy, right? And what really, when you made that purchase, were you feeling? Were you wanting to be entertained? Were you feeling bored and you just needed a quick hit of dopamine? Were you feeling sad? Were you feeling lonely? Were you feeling right? And so we're actually after something most of the time, whatever negative emotion, or even sometimes a positive emotion. Maybe you're riding a high and you're like, I want this to keep going. I'm going to buy more shit to feel good. Right? Is what are you really trying to feel? And again, it kind of boils down to that quick hit of dopamine. We want something to fill us up. We want to feel good. And then my question to you would be, what could we maybe do instead? And so that's kind of one thing that I like to have people think about is really the convenience factor of to this day and age, this digital age that we're in has really actually impacted our spending. And then on the other side of the coin, there's some people who are like, "Oh, I hate paying, my mortgage. It's so expensive, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, sure, that is true and valid. And also, I feel really happy when I get to pay my mortgage because it means that I get to put a roof over my family's head.
Mhm.
And so we can reframe things that might feel, a big one is taxes. Like maybe you're like, I hate paying taxes. This is a timely thing for the season. And
Mhm.
you're like, yeah, except for I actually really like driving on nice paved roads. I enjoy having a fire department that I know is nearby if I need them. And actually, my tax money could be reframed, at least part of it. It can be reframed into a positive. So I just like to think of money as this really amazing tool to get us to live these lives that we love. And how can we tap into our emotions to help us be fulfilled and help our money kind of support that?
Wow. I love
Yeah,
that.
I love that.
Love that. Can you define what financial wellness is for our audience?
Yeah. So everything I talk about is financial self care, right? It's taking care of yourself by taking care of your money. And a lot of times we're like, ooh, self care. It's this huge big buzzword, right? That, now huge conglomerations of companies and whatever are taking that on and being like, you need this thing, self care. You need that thing, self care. But really, think about it this way. A lot of times we think of self care as luxurious, we equate the two. Maybe that's a massage, maybe that's getting a facial, maybe that's getting red light therapy, whatever it is for you that might feel like self-care. And the truth is, if you're going to that massage, which is something that I happen to love, I love paying for massages. I don't mind it. But if you're doing that and you're going and you're getting that tension release, right? And then you come home and 2 hours later, you're actually just going right back into this financial stress. You didn't really do a whole lot with that self care that you were doing, right? Maybe it was a band aid, but it really wasn't getting down to the root cause of what's happening at and creating that tension in your body. And so financial self-care, I would argue, is the most important form of self-care in that then you can go and support your body in the way that you need to, and it's going to be lasting, right? That massage is no longer just a band-aid. It's actually going to release that tension and maintain that release for a while. But you have to
Mhm.
know how you're paying for it before you can do that. And so that financial stress doesn't creep back in.
I love that. And I think that's a huge gift to our audience, is that I think we have been taught in society that taking care of yourself is separate from money. And that is a marketing ploy. Like, people want you to throw that self-care on a credit card at 20 point whatever or 30% interest. And really, then it becomes a stressor, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah.
Where when you know how you're going to pay for it, I'm going to share with our audience. So I was saying, like, I get anxious when I see people with lots of Starbucks cups because I'm thinking myself, waste of money, waste of money, waste of money. And Lindsey was like, I love my Starbucks, but I treat it as a treat, like once to twice a month. And then she held up a gift card, and that's how she paid for it. And I was like, oh. And so, like, that's actually one of my favorite things is I like when people are like, what do you want for your birthday? What do you want? And I'm always like, a gift card to this spa, because that's what I use for my treat. And then I leave never feeling guilty
Mm-hmm.
because it's always been a treat and a gift, which we love gifts. And so I love that. And then I have a friend who like saves her money every week. And then at the end of like a month, she'll go buy herself a gift card so she treats herself.
I love it. Yeah. And I
Oh.
am a firm believer in shame-free spending. I have a shame-free spending account that is solely to use to spend. Right. And so on me, my husband has the same for him. And so he can go buy all the duck decoys. He's a big duck hunter. He can go buy all the duck decoys that he wants. And I can't say a damn thing about it. Right. Because we have this system in our house that allows for this. And then I have my shame-free spending that I will buy all the flights to wherever. I will buy my massages. I will buy my lattes. And I don't feel badly about it because I have a plan for my money. And I know my mortgage is being paid. My groceries are being bought. My investments are being funded. My savings is good. And I also get to spend money and do so in a way that's not creating any more shame. I'm not talking badly to myself. And it's not like an exorbitant amount, but it is plenty. And I feel fulfilled and I get to buy the things that I want to buy. And I have a really strong handle on what is going to move that baseline level of happiness up for me. And most of the time, it's like going and grabbing a coffee with my girlfriends. Like, I love that. Right. And so that is really what I encourage people to do.
I love that.
I love that. That leads right into like the next question that we have. And this one's a two-parter. How would you, and this is like not in black and white, but like in general, how would you describe a person who can openly talk about their money situation / relationship without shame or guilt? And when you see the guilt or shame does rear itself, what does that often either look like in the person physically, or how does it come out in their language or how they communicate it?
How does
Yeah,
it manifest?
Yeah. How does it manifest? Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, to Christina's point, like even just like seeing a latte is like, "Ugh," right? Like, what does that mean? And so, like, that's okay. But why is that coming up for you? And most of what we'll be, doing in a lot of the work is approaching just ourselves with curiosity. Because really, the antidote to shame and guilt and embarrassment is changing that to vulnerability and curiosity. And so when you can ask yourself, like, why is that coming up for me? Why am I getting this like ick in my mouth? I'll give you a really good example of this. I was on a girls' trip and with like my very closest college girlfriends, right? And so we've been friends for 15, what am I? I don't even know. 17 years, something like that. And we were all at this like fancy mall. And a couple of the girls wanted to check out some of the designer stores. We hadn't seen any of like I had never been, I like Christian Louboutins. They are like my favorite shoe. And I had never been in a store. And so I was like, yeah, can we go in there? Another one wanted to see, go look at the Louis Vuitton store, whatever. And one of our girlfriends was very like, guys, I don't want to do this. And we are like, that's fine. Like, whatever. Interestingly enough, that one who was like, bleh, had just bought a $20,000 snowmobile the year prior. And to me, I'm like, I don't want to go snowmobiling. Right. And so we had a really honest conversation around like, why is it okay that you spend thousands of dollars on a snowmobile, and that's like a proud thing for you. And yet somebody else, and most of the time this is women, and oftentimes it's women shaming other women about a
Mhm.
fancy designer purse or fancy designer shoes or a belt or whatever it is,
Mhm.
right? And the reality is, who are you to tell me that I shouldn't have shoes that are really expensive? Who are you to tell her that she shouldn't have a snowmobile that's really expensive? Right. And the reality is, I had a terrible snowmobiling accident. I never want to go on a snowmobile ever again in my life. So I would never spend money on that. But I have no ground to stand on to shame her for her decision. And I feel the same about the shoes that I wear or anything in anybody's life, as long as your finances are in a position where you can afford the thing, right? And do so without putting it on a credit card and what have you, then I'm not a person who's ever going to say, like, you shouldn't buy this thing, because it's not up to me. It's not my money. I don't care. And so I think if we can get to that place, that can be really healthy. And I love being able to have that conversation with my friends, with my family, with my husband, whomever, and say, like, what is it that's going to like bring your baseline level of happiness? What does that for you? 90% of the time for me, it's going to be traveling or having experiences with my family, my friends, my kids, my husband, whomever. I love that. But some people are like, I'm a homebody. I want to just be in my garden and spend, tons of money on my garden. And I'm like, great, do that. I kill everything. So that would just actually not work for me. But do your thing. And so I think that's when we're talking about, what does it look like to be able to have a conversation about money? That's the type of conversation, right? A lot of people are probably thinking, like, talk about money. I don't want to be like, I make $80,000 a year. Like, that's not the
Right.
conversations we're trying
Right.
to have, right? But really talking about how money can do things to support your life.
It almost sounds like if you've been listening to us, like the visual I get is that when people allow themselves to explore inward, whether it's their story or how they feel about their money relationship, that's kind of like their oxygen mask. Like they first have to put on their oxygen mask to explore it. And when they do it, one of the benefits of it is it invites the opportunity and the willingness and the freedom to play.
Mhm.
Like you have taken care of exploring and owning what's going on within you. And then when you do that, you could take off the mask and you can breathe freely and playing and enjoying, whether it's the shoe, the snowmobile, the visit, going to Costa Rica.
Yeah, totally.
I love that. I love that. And I think that really just segs us into my next question, too. I mean, when I look at it from an aspect of like parents of adult children who often are so judgy about what their kids are spending on or what their kids are doing or the car they're driving or the house they're living in or whatever, whether it be they think they should be in something nicer or they think they should be in something cheaper. Like parents seem to have such intense opinions about their kids. So maybe this next question is kind of how do we avoid that if we're parents of youngers? And I think if you're parents of adult children, like really listen to that. What do you need to do about yourself so you quit judging your kids? And for parents out there with kids who are still kind of in their home, college age, or you're teaching kids about money, what are one or two like quick tips of how parents could teach their kids a money relationship, to have a healthy money relationship with their kids?
Yeah, so I'll answer your first question first. It's really interesting to see, like, most of the people I'm working with are adults, right? And so they are getting judgment from their parents. If you're in that sandwich generation, let's say, right, where you have your young kids at your home and whatever. And the truth of the matter is things are very, very different now than they were 30 years ago when your parents were raising you. And that can be a really tough pill for parents to swallow, because back then, truly the American dream looked so much different than what the American dream is today. And in fact, their vision of the American dream has actually just created like a dream of debt for us. I guess it's not even a nightmare of debt for us, I should say, right? Because this idea that like you have to be a homeowner, like, do you? Actually, the math says that you don't have to be a homeowner, and I can run those numbers with somebody. Sometimes it makes perfect sense to be a homeowner. Other times it really truly does not. And I get a lot of pushback on that, but I will, like I said, I'm happy to run some numbers. But I think things like knowing like this pressure of like, why are you spending so much on those jeans for your kid? Right. It's like, well, there's pressures from society. We all feel them. And especially social media. I mean, we could do a whole episode on how social media really impacts your spending habits. But I think that is just really perpetuated this need and this desire for things and stuff. And consumerism has just like just turned up with social media's influence on us. And so it's a really tough spot to be because you want to, no matter what age you are, you want to have your parents' support and approval. And it can be a really delicate conversation because you're also in a position where you don't want to point to them and be like, well, you did this and that was stupid,
Right.
know, but also it was, so I think like understanding some of that. Again, I really encourage people anytime you are having a money conversation, I really encourage you to not only approach yourself with curiosity, but those around you. Like, why did you do things the way that you did? Like, can you explain that to me? And really just asking questions with genuine curiosity can really open up a really healthy dialogue around money with your parents and et cetera, right? For those who are hearing this and they're like, I had a super unhealthy relationship with money growing up because of my parents, right? And you want to break that cycle. You're like, no more, I'm not passing that on to my kids. Then there is so many things that I love to talk to. And, we can give the gift of telling your kids different things about money that are actually going to support them in their life moving forward. The first thing that I want parents to understand is money habits are established by the time you are 10 years old. So there's actually a study out of the University of Michigan that looked at this, and it's really kind of unbelievable how soon kids are picking up money habits, obviously from their environment, aka their parents. So if you're hearing that and you have like, oh my gosh, I might throw up, don't worry. Habits can always be changed. So I'm not saying that to scare you. There's a lot of hope in the changes that can be made. But I think establishing things really early on can be helpful. So we started really talking about money in front of our daughter when she was 0 because we were like, girl, you need to learn it. And I want her to see that her dad and I are able to have really positive interactions around money. We can have healthy conversations. It doesn't need to be contentious, right? And we can actually be really excited like, hey, you're getting a bonus. What do we get to do with that money? Like, that's so exciting. So I think just really practicing that in front of your kids can be great. That's number one. Number two is, and this sounds almost like not about money, but actually it is we have family meetings in our house. Anyone at any time can call a family meeting and whoever wants to call it can go get the talking stick, which my 4-year-old usually brings me a paintbrush and tells us this is our talking stick. And we'll have family meetings simply about what are we doing for the day? What's our plan? And we also have family meetings as big as we actually retired my husband in September. And we had a family meeting about it. We wanted my kids' input. Now, my son was 1 at the time, so he really didn't have much of an input, but my daughter was like very engaged in the family meeting. And we were like, okay, here's the deal. We're thinking about daddy coming home from work, and you're going to have way more time with daddy. You're going to get to see him every day, but it's going to mean that we're actually not going to restaurants as often as we once were. And we're going to have to turn the dial down on that a little bit, but we get to turn the dial on that if we want daddy home. What do you think? And she was like, yay, daddy. Like, she was so excited to have him come home. And that's a huge financial decision for us to have him, we're losing an income. And when we did that, the whole point of that was to really let my kids know that their voice matters in our household. We want their opinions. If she genuinely was like, no, I want the restaurants, we probably would have overrid her on that, but we want to at least let them know that like we want to hear what they have to say. And we wanted to start that super, super young so that when she's 10, 15, 20, 25 and older, we wanted them to know that their voice is always been heard and it should always be heard, no matter what seat at whatever table she's at. Right. So that's kind of another way they really encourage that. We're moving to Costa Rica. Hey, what do you think about moving away? This is, you're going to not see your grandparents as often. Here's the beach we're going to go to. We showed videos. What do you think about that? What does that mean for us? And so again, like big money decisions, for historically, a lot of parents have actually not let their kids in on those conversations, and it's done in pursuit to protect them. But actually what it did was just, we've all learned then to avoid the money, to not talk about the money. We have to figure this out on our own. Our parents don't talk about money, right? And so actually we want to include them in the conversation and normalize the fact, like, no, we talk about money here, and you have questions, let's talk about it. So
I love that.
I'm gonna just do a little bit of a caveat compared to, because I think you already just gave us a whole bunch. So I may just have you give some bonus gifts. So as you know, we love leaving our listeners with gifts on each and every episode. And we absolutely want all of you out there to know that Lindsey has a podcast called Financial Self-Care. So when you're done with this, grab your second cup of coffee or tea, get cozy even more, and go to Financial Self-Care. But Lindsey, if you can maybe leave our listeners with one or two quick gifts that if they are not already practicing financial self-care, what could they start doing it for themselves? I love you gave those gifts of if they're a parent and how they can do that within their family by letting their kids have visibility and having a voice by doing a family meeting. But if it's starting with them, right, going back to me, that oxygen mask, how can they start having some healthier financial self-care?
yeah, I think just really, again, approaching yourself with curiosity, understanding what are the money messages that you're telling yourself. Often with, adults, I hear them say things like, I feel like I deserve this. Like I deserve this vacation, right? And the truth of the matter is, this is controversial. It's a hot take, but I actually don't believe that you deserve that vacation. You might have earned that vacation, right? But those are two very different concepts. What we do deserve is respect, right? Every single human being deserves respect. Every single human deserves love. Every human being deserves nurturing, but you don't deserve a vacation. You don't deserve those shoes. You don't deserve that golf bag. You don't deserve that kind of stuff. You earn that stuff. And if you are, let's say, a lot of times I'll see clients, maybe in their 40s who are like, I feel like I'm at a place where I deserve a nice house or I deserve a nice car or, fill in the blank. And again, if you haven't done the financial work that you've needed to do you really deserve that? Or do you feel like you deserve that because that's what the society at large has told you that you should have, that you're at a place in your life where that's what you should have? And the reality is, that's just not a concept that I agree with. Like, you will get there at some point. I wholeheartedly believe that no matter what age you are, no matter where your relationship with money is, where your relationship with your spouse, it doesn't matter. You can get to a point of financial freedom, but that is going to take major transformation. It's like that, I don't know, was it Albert Einstein or something that was like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results? Like, that's not going to get you there. You have to be willing and open to make the changes that you need to make in order to get yourself into a place where you can earn those things, earn those annual vacations, right? And so if you're telling yourself, like, I deserve this, I deserve even this latte, right? Do you deserve it or do you just want it? Because it's okay to just want something. You don't have to deserve it. And so I encourage, people everywhere to really examine and have the self-awareness and gain some clarity around what we're telling ourselves. And are those stories true? And how do we need to change the stories to really change our life?
Thank you. Big gift.
Wow. I love that. Oh, this has been so powerful. So powerful. And there's so many gifts packed in it. Friends, like I said, I'm pretty obsessed with Lindsey's podcast, Financial Self-Care, and Lindsey herself. She's just got a piece about her that just really makes you feel safe in having conversations that feel big or scary. And she puts them in a way that it makes it easy to talk about. And so, friends, we did it. We talked about it. We had another hard and necessary conversation. We giggled and we talked about money. Lindsey, we could have not done this without you. So thank you. Thank you for gifting us your time, your expertise, your wisdom. It's just incredible. So, friends, if you know people who need this episode and you're sharing it with them, not to judge them, but rather to love on them and nurture them, please do so. Or maybe you're just sending it to validate them and be like, similar to how Lindsey was about her friend's family. Like, thank you for doing it differently and showing me a different path. And so share it, spread it. When you help others, you're also helping yourself. Know that. And so, friends, we would be honored if you leave us a positive review wherever you found us. And also, you can find us on all of our socials: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and now Pinterest. And we are also on YouTube. So if you want to see Lindsey's beautiful face and come hang out with her in person, come find us on YouTube. Until then, we will see you on Monday on Gifts from the Couch. And happy birthday.